I stand frozen in my graduation gown, staring at the suitcase by my father's feet. The blue polyester of my robe suddenly feels like it's choking me, the tassel from my cap tickling my cheek like an unwanted touch. Dad's hands are trembling as he zips up his jacket, and I just know, that whatever comes out of his mouth next is going to shatter everything. I'm Peyton, and this is the moment my family started to die. I can't do this anymore, sweetheart. His voice cracks on the endearment. Your mother and I, we've tried. God knows we've tried. The house behind him is dark, even though it's only 7 in the evening. Mom should be here. She should have been at my graduation too, but she claimed the business needed her. Now I wonder if that was ever true. Where's Tommy? I managed to ask, thinking of my little brother who's probably hiding somewhere inside, confused and scared. Upstairs with his iPad. Dad swallows hard. I already said goodbye to him. The rage hits me like a physical blow. You told him before me. On my graduation day. I didn't plan this, Peyton. I swear. But I saw her with him again today and... him. The word tastes bitter on my tongue. Dad's face twists. Eric Dawson. The new business consultant your mother hired. Though I suspect, consulting isn't all they've been doing. My diploma falls from my numb fingers, the leather holder clattering against the porch steps. Inside, I hear footsteps, and then my mother's voice rings out, sharp and defensive. Michael. What are you doing? She appears in the doorway, and I notice things I've been blind to for months. The expensive new highlights in her hair. The designer blouse that's just a bit too young for her. The guilty flutter of her hands as she sees Dad's suitcase. Linda. Dad's voice is dead. I was just leaving. Congratulations on destroying our family. Don't you dare put this all on me. Mom steps forward, her heels clicking on the porch boards. You checked out of this marriage years ago. I worked 60-hour weeks to keep River Clean Solutions afloat. And I was alone. Always alone. I back away from both of them, my graduation gown swishing against the steps. Through the front window, I catch a glimpse of movement, Tommy's small face peering down from upstairs, his iPad forgotten. Stop it, I whisper, then louder, stop it. They both turn to me, as if just remembering I exist. Mom's face softens. Honey, I'm sorry. This isn't how we wanted. Dad's laugh is ugly. There is no we anymore, Linda. Just you and Eric, right? Planning your future while I was killing myself to save our company. A car pulls into our driveway, headlights sweeping across us like a spotlight. My stomach drops as I recognize the sleek BMW. Eric Dawson steps out, his expensive suit and perfectly styled gray hair making him look like some corporate vampire. Everything okay here? His voice is smooth, concerned, and completely fake. Mom straightens, something hard settling over her features. Everything's fine, Eric. Michael was just leaving. Dad grabs his suitcase, and I reach for his arm. Please, I say, not even sure what I'm begging for. He kisses my forehead, whispering, I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'll call you tomorrow. Then he's gone, walking past Eric without a glance. Eric moves to stand beside my mother, his hands settling on her lower back in a gesture that's far too familiar. I look at them, my mother and this stranger who somehow replaced my father, and something cold and sharp takes root in my chest. Tommy appears in the doorway, his small hand clutching the frame, and I make a decision. They want to play happy families. Fine. But I'm going to burn their little fantasy to the ground. I just need to figure out how. 3 days after Dad left, Eric moved into our house. He brought designer luggage and expensive suits that now hang where Dad's work clothes used to be. I watch him settle in like some invasive species, spreading his influence room by room while Tommy huddles in corners, clutching his iPad like a shield. "We're having a family dinner tonight," Mom announces at breakfast, her voice bright and brittle. "Eric wants to discuss some exciting changes at the company." I stab my fork into my eggs. "Really?" "Because last time I checked, River Clean Solutions was doing fine without changes." "The business world doesn't stand still, Peyton." Eric's voice oozes from the doorway. He's already dressed for the office, his silver Rolex catching the morning light. "Your father's management style was traditional. We need to modernize." Tommy shrinks in his chair as Eric ruffles his hair in passing. I notice how my brother wipes his head afterward, a quick, furtive motion. "Speaking of modernizing," Mom says, not meeting my eyes, "Eric thinks it might be best if you postponed college for a year. Help out at the company, learn the business from the ground up." The fork clatters from my hand. "What?" "It's a smart move," Eric adds, pouring himself coffee into Dad's favorite mug. "College isn't going anywhere, and this way you'll have real-world experience. Dad already promised me." "Your father isn't here anymore," Mom snaps, then softens her tone. "Honey, things are different now. We need to adapt." I push away from the table, my chair scraping against the floor. "I need to check on Grandma Margaret." "Actually," Eric interjects, "Linda and I were thinking of selling the old house. Your grandmother would be more comfortable in assisted living." The room goes silent. Even Mom looks shocked. "We haven't discussed that yet, Eric. It's worth considering. The property values in that neighborhood are excellent." I grab Tommy's hand. "Come on, buddy. I'll walk you to school." Outside, Tommy's small fingers squeeze mine. "I don't like him," he whispers, as if Eric might hear through walls. "Me neither, kiddo." We walk in silence until Tommy asks, "Is Dad ever coming back?" My throat tightens. "I don't know. But I'm not going anywhere, okay?" At Grandma Margaret's house, I find her in her study, surrounded by old business files. She looks up, her eyes sharp despite her age. "I wondered when you'd come. Eric wants to sell your house." She snorts. "Of course he does. Just like he wants to sell the Richardson contract and outsource our cleaning staff." "What?" I sink into a chair. "Those families have worked for us for decades. Eric Dawson doesn't care about families." She slides a folder across her desk. "Look at this. His previous consulting jobs. 3 companies in 5 years, all sold off in pieces after he'd modernized them." I scan the documents, my hands shaking. "Does Mom know?" "Your mother sees what she wants to see right now." Grandma's voice softens. "But you, my dear, you see everything, don't you? I need to stop him." "Yes, you do." She opens another drawer, pulls out more files. "Start with these. Financial reports from the last 6 months. Notice anything strange about the new equipment purchases?" I study the numbers, remembering Dad's lessons about business accounting. Then I see it, inflated prices, ghost invoices, money disappearing into consulting fees. He's bleeding the company. Smart girl. Grandma smiles, but it's sharp as a blade. "Now, what are you going to do about it?" My phone buzzes, a text from Mom reminding me about dinner. I think about Tommy, about Dad's empty closet, about Eric wearing his smug smile while he dismantles our family's legacy piece by piece. First, I say, I'm going to that family dinner. Then I'm going to find out exactly where that money's going. Grandma nods, satisfied. "Be careful, Peyton. Men like Eric don't like being challenged. Good. I tuck the files into my bag. Because I don't like men who steal from my family. As I leave, I notice a photo on Grandma's desk, Mom and Dad on their wedding day, young and happy, with baby me between them. The glass is cracked, splitting the image right down the middle. Some breaks, I'm learning, aren't accidents at all. The family dinner turns into a corporate ambush. Eric stands at the head of our dining table, Dad's spot, tapping his wine glass with a fork. Behind him, a projection screen shows River Clean Solutions logo, twisted into something sleek and soulless. The future, he announces, is automation. I grip my water glass so hard my knuckles whiten. Tommy sits beside me, pushing peas around his plate, while Mom beams at Eric like he's delivering gospel. By outsourcing our cleaning crews and implementing automated systems, we'll increase profit margins by 40%. Eric clicks through slides showing charts and graphs. The Richardson contract alone is costing us. Those are people, I cut in. Not cost margins. The Richardsons have worked with us since before I was born. Eric's smile doesn't reach his eyes. Business isn't about sentiment, Peyton. It's about survival. Funny, we survived just fine before you showed up. Peyton. Mom's voice cracks like a whip. That's enough. I push back from the table. I need some air. Instead of going outside, I slip into Dad's old home office. Eric hasn't colonized this room yet, probably because Mom keeps it locked. Good thing Dad taught me how to pick locks when I was 12. I'm halfway through the filing cabinet when I hear voices in the hallway. I duck behind the desk just as the door opens. The board meeting's tomorrow, Eric says. Once they approve the restructuring, we can move forward with the asset liquidation. A voice I don't recognize responds, and the old woman. Margaret won't be a problem much longer. I've already contacted Sunset Valley Care Home. Linda agrees her mother-in-law needs specialized attention. What about the girl? Peyton. Eric laughs. She's a child playing at business. By the time she figures anything out, it'll be too late. My phone buzzes in my pocket. I hold my breath, but they're already moving away, their footsteps fading. When I check my phone, it's a text from Dad, call me. Important. I wait until I hear Eric and Mom laughing in the living room before sneaking out. In the garden, crickets mask my whispered conversation. The Richardson contract, Dad says when I explain what I heard. That's where he'll start. Check the new supplier agreements. Eric's probably setting up shell companies to funnel money through inflated service contracts. Already found them. But Dad, he's planning something with Grandma Margaret. I know. She called me earlier. Listen, Peyton, there's something else. The company bylaws. The porch light flicks on. I spin to see Eric watching me through the window. I have to go, I whisper. Be careful, sweetheart. Men like Eric don't like being challenged. I know. Back inside, Eric corners me in the kitchen. Lovely night for a garden chat. Just getting some fresh air. You know, Peyton, I've been thinking about your college plans. He leans against the counter, blocking my exit. There's an excellent business program at State. Close to home. We could even set you up with an internship at one of my associates' firms. The thread is clear, take the offer and get out of the way, or else. Thanks, I say, matching his fake smile. But I think I'll learn more staying right here. His expression hardens for a split second before smoothing over. Your mother worries about you, you know. All this resistance to change, it's not healthy. Neither is forcing your girlfriend's mother-in-law into a nursing home. Eric's mask slips completely. He steps closer, his cologne suffocating. You should be very careful about what accusations you make, little girl. Family businesses are fragile things. Accidents happen. Is that a threat? It's business advice. From someone who knows how the game is played. I meet his gaze. Funny thing about games, Eric. Sometimes new players change all the rules. Tommy appears in the doorway, his presence breaking our standoff. I brush past Eric, taking my brother's hand. Sweet dreams, Eric calls after us. Tomorrow's going to be a very interesting day. In my room, I pull out Grandma's files and my laptop. Eric wants to play games. Fine. But he's about to learn that some little girls grow up studying how to win. I wake to the sound of sirens. Red and blue lights strobe through my window, and my first thought is of Tommy. I'm halfway to his room when I hear Mom screaming from downstairs. Grandma Margaret's house is on fire. The next hours blur into a nightmare of smoke and questions. I stand on her front lawn, watching firefighters battle the blaze while Eric comforts Mom nearby. His arm around her shoulders makes my skin crawl. It appears to have started in the study, the fire chief tells us. Electrical fault, probably. The study. My voice sounds strange, even to me. Where all the business records were kept. Eric's head turns sharply. The fire chief continues, fortunately, your grandmother wasn't home. Something about a last-minute dinner with friends. I remember Dad's words about being careful, about Grandma's call to him. She knew. Somehow, she knew this was coming. Such a tragedy, Eric says, his voice dripping concern. Thank God Margaret wasn't here. Linda, darling, perhaps now's the time to discuss that care facility. No. The word comes out like a whip crack. Mom pulls away from Eric. Peyton, please. This is hardly the time. Your boyfriend just lost all of Grandma's business records in a convenient electrical fire, and you want to ship her off to a nursing home. I step closer, my voice dropping. Are you really this blind, Mom? Eric moves between us. You're upset, Peyton. We all are. But throwing around accusations. Where were you tonight, Eric? When the fire started. His smile turns razor sharp. Careful, little girl. Grief makes people say foolish things. A police officer approaches. Miss Rivers. We found something unusual in the study. Would you come take a look? In the charred remains of Grandma's office, the officer points to a small safe, its door hanging open. Empty, he says. Recently opened, by the looks of it. Any idea what might have been inside? I think of the files Grandma showed me, the evidence of Eric's past schemes. No, I lie. No idea. Back outside, I slip away from the chaos and call Dad. No answer. Then Grandma. Straight to voicemail. My hands shake as I text them both. Where are you? Peyton. Tommy's small voice makes me jump. He's standing in our driveway, clutching his iPad. I saw something. I follow him inside to his room, where he pulls up his tablet's camera roll. I couldn't sleep, he whispers. I was watching out the window. The photo is grainy in the dark, but clear enough. Eric, walking from his car to our house, carrying something that looks like a safe box. When was this? Just before the sirens. Tommy's voice trembles. Is Grandma okay? She's fine, buddy. I hug him tight, my mind racing. But I need you to delete that photo, okay? And don't tell anyone you showed me. Are the bad things going to stop now? I kiss his forehead, remembering Eric's threats about accidents and fragile businesses. Soon. I promise. My phone buzzes, a text from an unknown number, safe. Document secure. Wait for my signal. M. Relief floods through me, followed immediately by rage. Eric thought he could burn away the evidence, but Grandma was one step ahead. Now I just need to figure out his next move before. Peyton. Mom calls from downstairs. Eric wants to discuss the board meeting tomorrow. Given what's happened, he thinks it's best if you don't attend. I look at Tommy's photo one more time before he deletes it. Coming, Mom. Let Eric think he's won. Let him believe his little fire destroyed everything. But he's about to learn what happens when you try to burn down a Rivers woman's legacy. We don't just rise from the ashes. We bring the whole damn house down with us. The coordinates arrive at dawn, latitude and longitude sent from Grandma's burner phone. I find her in an old diner 50 miles outside town, looking perfectly composed despite being officially missing for 24 hours. You're late, she says, stirring her coffee. The board meeting starts in 2 hours. You could have warned me about the fire. She slides a thick manila envelope across the table. Would you have let me do what needed to be done? Inside are documents, bank statements, and photographs, Eric with various women, all looking remarkably like Mom, all connected to businesses he'd destroyed. But it's the last document that makes my hands shake, ownership papers for River Clean Solutions, dated 3 months ago, with my name on them. Why? Because I saw this coming. Grandma's eyes are steel. Your mother was already lost to his manipulation. Your father was too honest to fight dirty. But you, my dear, you have both my cunning and your father's moral compass. Eric thinks he destroyed everything in the fire. Eric thinks a lot of things. She pulls out one final document. Like how he's going to vote me out at today's board meeting, using shares he doesn't actually own. My phone buzzes, Mom asking where I am. Then another text, Dad, saying he's back in town. What's the play? I ask Grandma. Go to the meeting. Let Eric make his move. Then. She smiles, and I see where I get my capacity for revenge. Show him what happens when he underestimates a Rivers woman. At home, Eric's already in his board meeting suit, practicing his presentation. Mom fusses with his tie while Tommy watches cartoons, deliberately not looking at them. Where were you? Mom demands when I walk in. Visiting Dad. Eric's hands pause on his laptop. Michael's back in town. Just passing through. I head upstairs to change, but Eric follows. The board meeting is private, he says. Family only. Funny you should mention family. I turn to face him. How's Jessica Carter doing? Or Sarah Mills? Or any of the other women whose companies you destroyed? His facade cracks, just for a moment. Careful, little girl. You're playing with fire. You'd know all about that, wouldn't you? The doorbell rings. Through the window, I see Dad's car in the driveway. Eric's face darkens. Whatever you think you're doing, he says, remember, accidents don't just happen to buildings. I step closer, dropping my voice. Threaten my family again, and you'll learn exactly how much of my grandmother's blood runs in my veins. Downstairs, Mom's voice rises in shock. Michael. What are you doing here? Board meeting, Dad says. I'm still a shareholder, remember. I dress quickly in Grandma's old power suit, found hanging in my closet with a note, time to take back what's ours. In the car, Mom sits between Eric and Dad, the tension thick enough to choke on. Tommy hugs my arm, whispering, are you going to fix it today? Watch and learn, little brother. The boardroom is packed, shareholders, lawyers, and the Richardson family, who Eric didn't expect to show up. He takes his place at the head of the table, confidence oozing from every pore. Today, he begins, we vote on the future of River Clean Solutions. The old guard has failed us. It's time for modern leadership. Actually, I interrupt, standing. First, we need to verify voting rights. Eric's smile freezes. That's not necessary. It is when you're trying to vote with shares you don't own. I pull out Grandma's documents. Because as of 3 months ago, River Clean Solutions belongs to me. The room erupts. Mom gasps. Dad sits back, a small smile playing at his lips. And Eric looks like a man watching his castle crumble. This is ridiculous, he sputters. Linda, tell them. Tell them what? Grandma's voice cuts through the chaos as she walks in. How you plan to strip this company bare? Or should we discuss last night's fire first? Eric lunges for the documents. I step back, watching his desperation turn to fury. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone. Sometimes it's about letting them destroy themselves. Eric's laughter cuts through the boardroom chaos. You really think you've won something here, don't you? He pulls out his phone, tapping quickly. Check your email, everyone. Now. The room fills with notification chimes. I open the message and feel my stomach drop. Security camera footage from Dad's office, the night before he left. Mom's there, crying, while Dad shouts. But the audio's been edited, spliced together to make it sound like Dad's threatening her, demanding she sign over company assets. Domestic abuse allegations are messy things, Eric says smoothly. Especially when the abuser's daughter suddenly gains control of the family business. Makes you wonder about coercion, doesn't it? Dad stands. That's not what happened. The footage speaks for itself. Eric turns to Mom. Linda, darling, you don't have to be afraid anymore. Mom's face is ash white. Michael never, he wouldn't. Tell them, I demand. Tell them he's lying. But Mom just sits there, tears streaming down her face, and I realize Eric's been planning this moment for months. He's poisoned her mind so completely that maybe she actually believes it now. I move to suspend all ownership transfers pending investigation, Eric announces. All in favor. Hands rise across the table. The Richardson family looks at Dad with disgust. Grandma starts to speak, but Eric cuts her off. Margaret, given your apparent involvement in this coerced transfer, you might want to consult a lawyer before saying anything else. The ownership documents in my hands suddenly feel worthless. Eric's turned my triumph into evidence of conspiracy. Worse, he's destroying Dad's reputation, and using Mom's genuine pain and confusion as his weapon. You're going to prison for that fire, I say, but my voice shakes. What fire? Eric's smile is serpentine. The one that conveniently destroyed any evidence of your grandmother's illegal ownership transfer. The one that started in her study, where she kept the security footage backup drives. Interesting timing. The board members murmur. I watch our allies turning against us in real time. Linda, Dad tries again. You know me. 20 years of marriage. 20 years of controlling everything, Eric interrupts. The business, the money, your wife's every move. But that's over now. Mom stands abruptly. I need air. I'll come with you, Eric says, but she shakes her head. No. I need to be alone. She hurries out. I move to follow, but Eric blocks my path. The board needs to vote on freezing your assets. You're not going anywhere. This isn't over, I hiss. Oh, but it is. He leans close, whispering. By the way, Tommy's school called. Seems he never arrived this morning. Probably just lost track of time, playing in the park. Kids do that sometimes, don't they? Wander off. My blood turns to ice. What did you do? Me? Nothing. But children are so vulnerable these days. Streets aren't safe like they used to be. Dad grabs my arm. Peyton. What's wrong? I pull out my phone, calling Tommy's school. No answer. Try his phone. Straight to voicemail. Tick-tock, Eric murmurs. Better choose quickly, stay here and fight for your company, or... I run. Behind me, I hear Eric telling the board, poor girl. Unstable, just like her father. Must run in the family. Outside, Mom's car is gone. Tommy's nowhere in sight. And I realize Eric's beaten me at my own game. He's not just taking the company, he's destroying everything I love. My phone buzzes, a photo message from an unknown number. Tommy's iPad lying broken in the park. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone. Sometimes it's about making them destroy themselves. And Eric's just turned my own strategy against me. I find Tommy exactly where Mom used to take us after bad days, the old playground behind River Clean Solutions. He's sitting on a swing, iPad clutched to his chest, while Mom paces nearby, phone in hand. He said you'd come here, Mom says without turning. That you'd choose Tommy over the company. Like you chose Eric over us. She flinches. I didn't. I thought I was protecting us. Eric showed me proof that your father was embezzling. Fake proof. Just like that doctored security footage. I move toward Tommy, but Mom steps between us. Don't. Her voice breaks. Eric says if you take Tommy, he'll press charges against Dad. My phone buzzes, a text from Grandma, check your email. Now. The attachment is a video. Eric in his office, arguing with someone off-screen about shell companies, money transfers, and Linda Rivers' useful naivety. The timestamp is from this morning. Mom, watch this. More accusations. More attempts to poison me against. Against what? The man who burned down Grandma's house. Who threatened your 7-year-old son. Tommy's small voice cuts through our argument. He said he'd hurt Dad if Mom didn't help him. Mom goes still. What? I heard him on the phone. He said Mom was almost ready, but if she wasn't, he knew people who could make accidents happen. A car door slams in the parking lot. Eric strides toward us, his confidence cracking when he sees us all together. Linda, darling, what are you doing? The board's waiting. Watch the video, Mom. I hold out my phone. Watch it now. Eric lunges for the phone, but I'm faster. Mom catches a glimpse of the screen, Eric's own words damning him, before he knocks it away. It's fake, he snarls. Like everything else they've tried. The original's already with the police, I cut in. Along with proof of the shell companies you used to siphon money. Did you really think Grandma wouldn't have backup copies of everything? Linda. Eric's voice turns gentle. They're manipulating you. Remember what the therapist said about Michael's control tactics. The therapist you chose, Mom whispers. The one you insisted I see alone. His mask slips. Everything I did was for us. No. Mom's voice hardens. Everything you did was for you. Just like with the others. Sarah Mills. Jessica Carter. Eric's hand shoots out, grabbing Mom's arm. Don't be stupid. The crack of Mom's slap echoes across the playground. Eric staggers back, then straightens, all pretense gone. Fine. You want the truth. Your precious family business was dying long before I arrived. I just accelerated the inevitable. And now. He laughs. Now the board thinks your husband's abusive, your daughter's unstable, and your mother-in-law's senile. Who do you think they'll believe? Police sirens wail in the distance. Eric's smile falters. They'll believe the evidence, Dad's voice rings out. He steps from behind the playground equipment, phone recording everything. The real security footage. The financial records. Your confession just now. Eric runs. He makes it 3 steps before Officer Richardson, son of the family Eric tried to fire, tackles him to the ground. You recorded everything. Mom asks Dad. Peyton's idea. She said Eric would crack if he thought he'd won. Mom turns to me, tears streaming. I'm so sorry. I should have seen. Later, I say, because Tommy's running toward us and some wounds need time before they can heal. We watch the police lead Eric away, his threats and protests fading into the evening air. Mom's still shaking, Dad's keeping his distance, and nothing's really fixed yet. But Tommy's safe. The company's secure. And as I hold my little brother close, I realize revenge isn't always about destroying someone. Sometimes it's about protecting what matters most, even if it means breaking everything else to do it. Let's go home, I say, and for the first time in months, I actually believe we can. The boardroom feels different now. Maybe it's because Eric's nameplate is gone, or because Mom and Dad sit on opposite sides of the table, or because Tommy's drawings hang on the wall behind my chair. Small changes that mean everything. The Richardson contract is secure, I tell the board. With the original terms intact. Murmurs of approval ripple through the room. Dad nods slightly, he taught me well. Negotiate from strength, but remember the human cost. And the modernization plans, someone asks. We're updating systems, not replacing people. I slide across proposals for actual improvements, not Eric's hollow schemes. River Clean Solutions was built on family loyalty. That's not changing. The vote is unanimous. As people file out, Mom lingers, twisting her wedding ring, a habit she never broke, even after taking it off. The police found more evidence in Eric's storage unit, she says quietly. Documents from other companies, other women. I know. The files sit in my office, a reminder of what happens when revenge becomes an addiction. He'll have plenty of time to think about his choices in prison. Like I'm thinking about mine. Her laugh is bitter. I let him poison everything. Your father, your graduation, Tommy's sense of safety. Mom. I touch her hand. We all made choices. She looks at me, really looks at me, for the first time since that night. When did you grow up so fast? Around the time I had to. Grandma appears in the doorway, her cane tapping against the floor. The contractors are here about the house repairs. Go, I tell Mom. Help Grandma rebuild. We'll figure out the rest later. After they leave, Dad approaches my chair, his old chair. Ready for your first solo board meeting? Terrified. I straighten papers that don't need straightening. What if I mess up? What if I turn into Eric? Dad shakes his head. Not possible. You know why? Because I have your moral compass and Grandma's cunning. Because you stopped. He sits on the edge of the desk. You had Eric cornered, the company in your control. You could have destroyed your mother's reputation like he tried to destroy mine. But you chose protection over punishment. I chose family. Exactly. Tommy bursts in, iPad displaying his latest game score. Can we get ice cream? Mom said to ask you, since you're the boss now. Chocolate chip. I ask, and his grin is answer enough. At the door, I pause, looking back at the boardroom. The family photos on the walls, 3 generations of River's determination. The empty chair where Eric once plotted destruction. The space between mom and dad that might never fully close. Some things break too completely to fix. But maybe that's okay. Maybe the cracks and missing pieces become part of the story, reminding us what we fought to protect. Coming, boss. Tommy calls. Don't call me boss. I ruffle his hair as I pass. I'm still just your sister. Yeah, but you're scarier now. Like Grandma. I laugh, because he's not entirely wrong. I learned about revenge from Eric, but I learned about power from Margaret Harris. The difference is knowing when to use it, and when to let it go. Outside, Mom and Dad walk on either side of Grandma, discussing paint colors for her rebuild study. They're not together, probably never will be again. But they're talking, and sometimes that's enough. Tommy grabs my hand, pulling me toward the ice cream shop. Behind us, River Clean Solutions stands solid and unchanged, despite everything that tried to tear it down. I squeeze my brother's hand, thinking about choices and consequences, about the fine line between justice and vengeance. About how sometimes protecting what matters means letting go of what's broken. And sometimes, it means choosing chocolate chip ice cream over corporate warfare. At least for today.
2 years into our marriage, yet I still considered us newlyweds. 2 years after the day we vowed to spend forever together, my heart sank at the sight of my wife, unashamedly declaring, "I'm pregnant." The father was my boss. "Blas, we should wait to have kids. I want to enjoy our time as newlyweds." Those words I told my wife when we got married echoed in my mind. My name is Ryan Kitchener. I turned 30 this year. I married my wife, Susan, 2 years ago. We met at work. We were in different departments, but worked for the same company. Every time we crossed paths in the hallways of our office building or in the elevator, I thought to myself, what a beautiful woman she was. When a coworker introduced us, I was thrilled. My heart did a little victory dance. I was always looking for an opportunity to talk to Susan, and I wasn't going to let this chance slip by. I watched every movie and read every book she recommended. My attempts to close the distance between us slowly but surely started to bear fruit. Back then, it seemed Susan had a boyfriend, but I didn't ask too much about him. I indicated that it didn't matter to me. Even now, I'm amazed at my own tenacious efforts. Susan quit her job by her own volition and is now a stay-at-home wife. I'm happy that she's keeping our home safe. Susan goes to cooking and flower arrangement classes, has leisurely lunches with her friends, and lives a comfortable and relaxed life. 2 years into our marriage, around the time when our parents started hinting about wanting to have grandchildren, an unbelievable incident occurred. The busy season of overtime was over, and I was in high spirits, leaving work on time. Thinking that Susan must have been feeling lonely due to my busy schedule, I bought her favourite cake on my way home for the upcoming long weekend. We could go on a mini vacation. I picked up brochures of nearby tourist spots at a travel agency by the train station. I'd ordered takeout so Susan wouldn't have to worry about making dinner. I'm home. I managed to get off work early today. I spoke to Susan while taking off my shoes at the front door. She came running from down the hall. She seemed surprised at my early return. As I explained about ordering takeout for dinner, I handed her the cake she loves. But there was something off about Susan. "Is something wrong?" I asked as I handed her my suit jacket. She gave a small nod. There was a sullen look on her face. As I sat down on the living room couch, Susan took a seat in front of me. Then she said words that I couldn't believe. I'm pregnant, and I want us to break up. The words hit me like a blunt force to the back of my head. I could never have imagined hearing such words from Susan. Susan, and I don't have any kids. She was the one who had convinced me, who wanted a child right after we got married, that it was too soon. Respecting her wish to enjoy our newlywed life a little longer, I had promised to wait for her sake. We were careful these past 2 years, so what's this new life in her belly? I want a divorce. It's for the child. I never wanted to hear the phrase, for the child, from Susan's mouth in such a situation. I thought it would be a phrase we'd use joyfully together as a couple. Susan was looking at me expressionlessly, but it seemed her intention to divorce was firm. Please sign this. I want a divorce for the sake of my child. Susan laid out divorce papers with her signature already on them before me. The witness section was signed by Susan's parents. She had already consulted her parents. I want to know who the father is, but I couldn't afford to lose my cool here. I have my pride too, I thought. So, you're serious? In response to my question, Susan gave a firm nod. After that, I only remembered concentrating hard not to let the pen shake in my hand. She carefully folded the signed divorce papers, and it seemed she had already packed her things. A large suitcase in hand, she headed for the door, and I had no words. Susan didn't look back at me again. Her feelings for me were gone. It was clear from her expression. She disappeared into the twilight, pulling her suitcase behind her. All I could do was gaze at Susan's retreating figure. That night, I drank alone until I fell asleep. Because I had passed out drunk in the living room, it seemed I had caught a cold. I was hit by a headache and chills, which are different from a hangover. I called my workplace. I told them I would be taking a sick day to reflect on last night. I wondered if it was all a dream, but there were the liquor bottle and that pen on the living room table. It wasn't a dream. Susan really did betray me and left. When reality hit again, my chest throbbed with pain, and I realized the saying, the cuter they are, the harder they fall, is really true. I can't believe how much I hate Susan, who I loved so much. I have to find the other man. I spent a day raging through the belongings Susan left behind. With that thought in mind, the ring and bracelet I gave her when we were dating were still in the jewellery case. I found the wedding ring in the trash can. What was she thinking when she threw the ring into the trash can? Just imagining that made me feel dizzy. I spent all day looking for clues about the other man, but in the end, I only succeeded in raising my fever. Despite all this, I kept rummaging through her belongings incessantly, feeling as if I'd fall apart if I didn't stay busy. But because I was in such a state, my health didn't fully recover in a day. In the end, I ended up taking a week off from work. Somehow, when I managed to get myself back to work, my coworkers knew about my divorce, even though I hadn't told them yet. How are you feeling, Ryan? You're such a softy getting sick just because of a divorce. My direct boss, Tom Gary, strolled up to me with a smirk. Gary was always the type to nitpick and make life difficult for me. His overly pretentious demeanour, along with his sleazy behaviour, was always off-putting. As I begrudgingly endured his company, I suddenly realised he mentioned the divorce. Then it hit me. Before she got married to me, Susan and Gary used to work in the same department. Oh, didn't Susan tell you about the divorce? Or was your tiny little pride too precious for that? He sneered, and the pieces fell into place. Are you the father of Susan's unborn child? I asked in a low, grating voice. Gary, in an adjusting tone, confirmed. That's right. He was completely mocking me. For a moment, I didn't realize what I had done. When I came to, Gary was sprawled across the room, a toppled chair and scattered desk items around him. I felt a dull pain in my clenched fist. The ensuing chaos was like something out of a festival. Some people were helping Gary up. Others were trying to restrain me. Gary, despite being hit, was laughing. He was laughing at the future trouble. I had just invited him. He had baited me into it. Gary is the grandson of the founder of our company. I had just punched a future company executive. Of course, I was suspended, and then inevitably I was fired. I became an unemployed man, dumped by his wife. My life after that was a wreck. I knew I needed to look for a job to survive, but my actions couldn't catch up with my thoughts. I started drinking during the day, and as night fell, I would start drinking all over again. I suppose this is what they call self-destructive. I had no motivation to do anything. My only consolation was that I had savings. I wanted to thank the old me for being diligent in saving money while living such days. After about a month, a surprising visitor arrived. At first, I pretended I wasn't home. But 30 minutes later, the doorbell rang again. Once again, I pretended not to be home. The doorbell rang again an hour later. Annoyed, I wondered who on earth could be bothering me. As I reluctantly opened the front door, I found an unfamiliar woman standing there. She stood tall, gazing at me with a piercing stare. I felt like I was being judged, and I quickly averted my eyes. "May I ask your name?" I asked. The woman staring at me had a dignified appearance and a face that suggested a strong will. Suddenly, I felt embarrassed about the alcohol on my breath. I hadn't even bothered to shave. "Are you the ex-husband of that woman?" she asked abruptly, nearly stopping my heart. She didn't beat around the bush. She was Gary's wife, and that woman she mentioned must have been Susan. Well, I stuttered, at a loss for words. The woman deeply bowed her head. She introduced herself as Lillian. Just as I'd imagined, she was Gary's wife. The neighborhood ladies passed by, shooting me curious glances. I always found these gossip-loving folks a bit hard to deal with. "Please come inside." I hastily invited Lillian in, trying to avoid the gossip that would inevitably spread otherwise. "Thank you," she replied and walked into the house without hesitation. Of course, I hadn't done any cleaning at all. As I led her into the chaotic living room, she began to silently gather the trash scattered around. "I can clean that up myself." I tried to insist, but she cut me off. "We can't have a serious conversation in this mess, can we? If you're not going to help, please sit down," she snapped. So, I sat up straight. I sat down on the couch and watched in silence as she went about tidying up. "Why don't you go wash your face?" she suggested. I got startled by her words and dashed off to the bathroom. I washed my face quickly. I was shocked at the sight of myself in the mirror. I looked like a stranger. I washed my face and shaved. I washed and combed my hair for the first time in a long time. I felt a little bit more like a human. When I returned to the living room, the cleaning was already finished. The trash had been bagged up and set out in the hallway. "I used your kitchen," Lillian said as she offered me a cup of tea. She seemed quite reliable for Gary's wife. "Thank you. I feel like a human again," I said, surprised by how naturally my gratitude spilled out. Lillian gave me a faint smile in response to my words, but in the next moment, her smile disappeared. "My husband asked me for a divorce. He said it's because he has a child now." She cut straight to the chase. It seemed she disliked beating around the bush. "I was told the same thing by my wife. I'm already divorced. When I told her it was none of my business anymore, she let out a deep sigh. It seemed that the affairs of her husband, Gary, weren't a new occurrence. Apparently, he had resolved a previous scandal with money, and it was also with Susan. Susan took the payoff, and she immediately married me. She told me she got married as proof of ending her relationship with Gary. He had attempted to resolve it with money this time as well, but Susan wasn't budging. From Lillian's tone, I could tell she still loved Gary. She wanted to somehow get rid of Susan. So I get what you want to say. But you want to mend things with Gary and not get a divorce. This man had cheated on her twice with the same woman and even had a child with her. Could she still be holding on to feelings for him? When I asked if she didn't want a divorce, Lillian looked a little surprised. She had an expression as if divorce hadn't even crossed her mind. Do you really think you can start over from this point? Even I think it's a bit mean to ask, but I found her expressions and attitude intriguing. I wanted to know what Lillian's response would be. With a small smile, she simply said, "We're married after all." I don't know why, but I felt defeated. In the end, I asked Lillian to leave that day, agreeing to discuss it again another time. The day after Lillian's visit, Gary came over. It seemed he had heard from Lillian about her meeting with me yesterday. As a former boss, I decided to invite him into the living room. Gary looked around the living room and then laughed. "Find something funny?" I asked. Lillian cleaned up, didn't she? Gary said this with amusement in his voice. I hadn't noticed, but it seemed that Lillian's style was reflected in how she tidied up. Feeling the vibe of understanding between them irritated me. When I asked him what brought him here, Gary said he had a request for me. He wanted me to convince Lillian to divorce him. The request left me shocked. According to Gary, Lillian can't have children. He loves children and needs an heir. The fact that Susan is pregnant was a golden opportunity. He offered me a reward for convincing Lillian to agree to a divorce and placed a thick envelope in front of me. The sight of him trying to solve everything with money made me sick. I want kids, and that's something Lillian can't give me. At these words, I lost my patience. I grabbed him by the collar, but Gary was still laughing. He probably thought he wouldn't get punched twice. Just as I was about to swing my fist, a soft hand gently grasped my raised fist. "Is my husband worth punching?" Lillian said. She had followed Gary. "You left the front door wide open. That's careless," as she scolded me. I involuntarily lowered my fist, and I muttered, "Okay." My grip on Gary's collar loosened, momentum extinguished. "So, you want a child, huh?" Lillian murmured as she looked at Gary as he nodded. She pulled out some documents from her bag. They were divorce papers. "Are you satisfied now?" Lillian smiled as she offered the papers to Gary. Her smile was stunningly beautiful, almost eerie. It looked as if it could forgive anything and everything, yet at the same time, it was as if it could send someone straight to hell. As Gary took the divorce papers, his fingers lightly traced over the back of her hand. It felt like I've seen something I shouldn't have, and I quickly averted my eyes. "Thank you." Gary left these words behind, swiftly striding towards the front door. "We're enemies now, aren't we?" Gary waved without turning around to her words. It seemed that he had accepted her declaration of war. Once Gary was out of sight, Lillian turned back to me. "Shall we lick our wounds together? But first, let's have our revenge." We both separately demanded compensation from Gary and Susan. They're well off no matter how much we demand. They're likely to pay. I asked my lawyer to proceed with all matters simultaneously because I wanted them to suffer, even if just a little. This would be just a bit of payback. Child's play, really. After demanding the compensation, Susan finally came crying. It seems Gary will pay his own part, but he won't pay Susan's portion. They're not married yet, so it's only natural. But it seems there's more to it. At a meeting between the four of us, Gary started saying that I was also to blame for Susan's affair. He claimed it was a result of making her feel lonely due to my constant work. You sure have a knack for blowing smoke, don't you? It won't work on me. Lillian pulled out was a report on Gary's personal investigation. The investigation had apparently been requested by Gary's parents. Susan and Gary had been involved before my marriage to her, and at one point, Susan had accepted a settlement to sever ties. However, behind the scenes, the relationship continued. Apparently, my marriage to her was suggested by Gary as a camouflage. I love my work, and I'm a bit insensitive. For them, having an insensitive husband was very convenient. Moreover, since I was working with Gary, they could always keep an eye on me. The report Gary's parents had put together by spending a considerable amount of money was unbelievably detailed. Lillian reads through the contents in a steady voice. The colour drains from Gary and Susan's faces. The first to break was Susan. She starts to scream, almost hysterically. Stop it. Stop it now. It's not good for the baby if you stress yourself out so much. At our reprimand, Susan flinched, being stared down by Lillian's icy eyes. Susan fainted on the spot. Gary, panicking, cradled Susan in his arms, to which Lillian smiled, already surrendering. That's a shame. I believe Lily and truly love Gary. Love and hate are two sides of the same coin. The deeper the love, the deeper the hate. It seemed Gary understood that too. In the end, I had no role in the discussion, and the meeting ended with Lillian dominating the conversation. At the end, Lillian laughed at me, saying, "That's it." Afterwards, the reason for my divorce became well known at work. I was the one who had leaked it to my co-workers. The company wanted to cover it up, but it was too late. In the end, Gary was sidelined at work and had no place in his family. After remarrying, Susan is struggling with in-law issues. It seems that Gary's parents, who like Lillian, are hardly treating Susan, who took Lillian's place after driving her out. I think it serves her right. When everything about the alimony and other issues have been settled, I invited Lillian for coffee. She told me about her current situation, working at a friend's company while living alone. I can't have children, so I need to be self-sufficient. I don't feel the same fear I did back then. When I see Lillian speaking with such a sincere expression, "Your reason for being independent seems a bit off," I disagreed with Lillian. She looked at me surprised. It was the first time I had strongly insisted on something. I noticed she was still wearing her wedding ring. It was proof she hadn't forgotten Gary. Summoning my courage, I decided to give her the words I had been practicing since last night. "I don't mind." She looked at me with a puzzled expression. I took a deep breath. Then I asked her to wait until I found a job, as I was applying to be Lillian's boyfriend. Lillian and I will definitely work out. We understand each other's pain. I will never hurt you. From my expression, she seemed to understand that I wasn't joking. She looked down once and then chuckled. "I'm quite a handful, you know." "I am well aware of that," I replied. I gently traced the back of her hand with my finger. It seemed like she was recalling something as she squinted her eyes. She gently brushed off my finger and then took off her ring. I felt it was her way of breaking away from her past. Then she lightly touched my hand, her delicate fingers tracing the back of my hand. It felt like her love was flowing into me from her finger. "I'll make you happy, so please wait." Lillian laughs as if she's bursting with joy. I swore in my heart to always protect that smile. What did you think? Subscribing to the channel will encourage us to produce more. See you in the next video.
Hello people, I am Jasmine and this is my story. I will be sharing an event with my soon-to-be ex-husband and mother-in-law. The betrayal and lies are still haunting me, so I thought I should get it off my chest. I have seen multiple posts about people dealing with horrible mothers-in-law and their equally bad sons. I had to face something similar. When I married my husband Tom, I had no idea he was a big mama's boy. His mother, Vera, was extremely close to him from his childhood. He has been taught that his mother comes first. I mean, I have no problem with him being a mama's boy. However, sometimes Vera's hold over him also suffocated me. After Tom married me, he always said, "Even if you are my wife, my mum is still a priority for me." I hope you understand that, Jasmine. I don't want you to think otherwise. I responded, "I know that, Tom. As long as you respect and value me as well, I have no problems with your closeness to Vera. You are her son, after all." Thank you for understanding, Jasmine. I hope we won't have problems with this in the future. Tom was not joking when he said that Vera was his priority. As the years progressed, it became clear that Vera held an even higher position than me. Tom worked a good job, but spent half his income on her. Vera refused to work and insisted on living on her son's money. I ended up putting more money into our household accounts to make ends meet. When I talked to Tom about this, he said, "How dare you bring this up, Jasmine? I already told you that my mum is a priority. Why are you creating trouble about this? Do you want my mom to starve?" "I never said that, Tom. You're just giving out more money to Vera than necessary. I have tolerated it for so many years, but you need to stop. That will never happen. I have a responsibility towards her, and I will send her whatever money I please. Stay out of this." All this while, I knew that I was fighting a losing battle. We had multiple fights about Vera. It also didn't help that Vera hated me and insulted me at every chance. Hell, Tom was the only one invited to her house for Christmas. I was never allowed. Tom had nothing to say about this. He always left me alone and celebrated with Vera. Things didn't improve even after Tom and I had a child. Ethan was also boycotted from Vera's house because he was my child. Ethan craved his grandma's love when he was young. However, Vera only had insults for him. Tom never protested and merely told us to deal with it. After a while, Ethan and I both gave up pleasing Vera. I didn't want Ethan to grow up among divorced parents, so I never left. However, I later realized my mistake. You see, Tom suddenly left his job when Ethan was about 12 years old. He sat me down one day and said, "I have quit my job, Jasmine. Today was my last day. I've been thinking about leaving for a while. I think it's time." "What? Why didn't you discuss this with me? Do you have any jobs lined up?" "No, I won't be returning to work anytime soon. I feel burnt out and need some rest. You earn enough to support us, so that won't be an issue. By the way, I hope you know that Mum will be moving in with us. You need to take care of her as well. It'll be easy if we don't pay her rent. You own this house, so you can let her stay here for free." "Who the hell gave you this idea, Tom? Your mom is your responsibility. I want nothing to do with her. That woman literally hates me and Ethan. Why do you think I will house her and feed her for free? She is my mum and your family. You are bound to help her out. I don't want any excuses." Tom and I had multiple fights about this issue. When he finally understood that I wouldn't relent, he stopped asking. Since our house was my inherited property, he couldn't force me to house Vera. Since Tom stopped asking about taking in Vera, I thought he finally got the point. Turns out he was just plotting against me. One day, Tom came back to our house with Vera in a wheelchair. He was gone for a week to Vera's place because he wanted to spend time with her, but I didn't hear from him during the entire time. When he finally showed up, he brought a wheelchair-bound Vera to the house. I let them in, looking confused as hell. Then Tom and Vera told me something shocking. "Jasmine, I'm sure you're wondering what happened. Sorry I couldn't reach out to you sooner. Mum got into an accident. I accidentally hit her with my truck when I was pulling into the garage. Unfortunately, she has suffered a lot and has been paralyzed." Oh my God, are you serious? Vera is paralyzed. Yes, Jasmine, it was an unfortunate incident, but I ended up paying dearly for it. Now, I don't know how I can stay alone. Jasmine, since I was the one who caused her to be paralyzed, I have been feeling very guilty about this. Would you mind if she stays here? You know I can't support her right now, and I don't know what to do. I have lots of medical bills too, Jasmine. My son can't do anything for me. If I go for insurance, I would have to file a report against Tom. You know I can't do that. Hearing everything made me both angry and sad at the same time. I was angry at Tom for just springing this on me and being careless. I was also sad for Vera because, while I am not made of stone, I understood I had no choice but to help them out. I thought that it would make us come closer as a family, so I gave Tom some money from my savings to clear Vera's medical debts. I also took her in and let her stay with me. Well, all my hopes for reconciliation came crashing down soon. Vera never changed her mind about me, even after I helped her out. Instead, she and Tom ganged up on me and made my life a living hell. They berated me constantly for being lazy and useless. I was working 40 hours a week trying to keep our finances together. Meanwhile, Tom and Vera did nothing to help. When I asked for help, they said, "How could you ask me for help, Jasmine? I'm a poor disabled woman. I can't do anything for you." I'm not asking for you to help Vera. I'm simply telling you to stop littering everything. I'm getting tired of constantly picking up after you. You won't even use the dustbin beside your bed. Stop attacking my mum, Jasmine. You know she can't move. How dare you tell her to adjust? Why don't you help me out, Tom? You're here all day. I could use some help around the house. I can't keep up with everything after working for so many hours. I have to take care of Mum all day. I don't have time for your chores. Those are your responsibilities, not mine. Make Ethan work with you. I couldn't believe the freaking audacity of Tom. Ethan was already helping me out with all the chores. He had his schoolwork as well. He and I were getting tired of slaving for Tom and Vera, yet Tom never helped out. Vera complained all day long and refused to even do basic tasks that she was perfectly capable of doing. I was tired of working for them. My bank account sat empty, and I had very little savings left. Still, I held myself together because I felt sorry for Vera and Tom. Well, it turns out I was being played for a fool. One day, Ethan approached me when Tom and Vera were not around. He said that there was something he needed to talk about. "Mom, why does Grandma still use a wheelchair? She isn't sick anymore. Why does she need it even now?" "Your grandma is still paralyzed, Ethan. This means she cannot move without the wheelchair. Unfortunately, she hasn't gotten any better. But I see Grandma walking every morning. I thought she had recovered. Why are you saying she can't walk?" "What do you mean, Ethan? Vera is paralyzed from the waist down. She can't walk, son. You must have mixed it up." "No, Mum, it was her. When I asked her how she can walk, she just shushed me and ignored me. She even told me not to tell you." I was immediately alarmed. I had a nagging suspicion that something wasn't right. I didn't have any proof, so confronting Vera was out of the question. But now my son gave me some grave news. I was starting to get very angry. Still, I needed more information and proof, so I said, "Do you have any proof by any chance?" "I need more proof, Ethan." "Yes, I do, Mum. I took a video with my phone. Do you want to see it?" "Show me the video, Ethan. I need to see it right now." Ethan was right. His video did catch Vera walking in the hallways. I was pretty shocked. I couldn't believe my eyes. What was even more shocking was that Tom saw her walking and didn't really look surprised. In fact, he even walked up to her, and they laughed about something in the hallway. I was absolutely furious. They were fooling me for 6 freaking months. I was livid. I immediately saved the footage on my phone and waited to confront them. The next day, when I returned from work, I saw that Tom and Vera were casually talking in the living room. I was pretty enraged, but kept my cool. I decided that it was time to confront them. I sat down beside them and said, there is something I needed to talk to you guys about. What is it, Jasmine? Tell us now. Why did you two lie to me about Vera's condition? I know she's not paralyzed and can walk just fine. So tell me, why did you do this? What are you talking about, Jasmine? This is ridiculous. You know Mum is paralyzed. Are you accusing her of faking it? How dare you accuse me of faking it? You're such a witch, Jasmine. I was right about you all along. You are a heartless woman. Don't lie to me, you two. I have ample proof that Vera can walk. I've seen it with my own eyes, and I also know you know about this, Tom. This is ridiculous, Jasmine. How can you accuse us like this? I didn't expect this from you. Stop being such a cruel person and making up lies about us. Well, I am making things up, Tom. As I said, I have proof. Since you won't accept it, I'll show you the proof. Here, watch this. I took out my phone and showed them the footage. They saw it and turned pale. Tom and Vera looked absolutely shocked. Their eyes bulged out of their sockets, and they clearly looked scared. When the video stopped, I calmly put down my phone and said, "So now that I've shown the proof, tell me why you have been lying to me. I want an answer." Well, Mum was really paralyzed, Jasmine. She only recovered recently. We've been keeping it a secret. We actually wanted to surprise you. Yes, it's still, I need to tell if I can walk like normal. We wanted to wait and tell you the news when we were sure. Nice story you got there, guys. However, I don't believe you one bit. If you want to prove yourselves, I need to see your doctor's certificates. Only then will I accept your words. Tom and Vera looked visibly anxious and started to mutter nonsense about not having a note at the moment. When it became apparent that they had no proof of Vera's disability, I said, "That's it. Now I know everything I needed to know. Since you two can't give me proof, I won't be taking care of you. I want you both out of the house next month. And Tom, I am filing for divorce." Jasmine, you're overreacting. You don't have to be so drastic in your decisions. We only lied to you because Mum had nowhere to go. Yes, this is all your fault. You are financially abusing my son by not letting him take me in. We had no other choice than to cook up this story. If you had been a little less selfish, we wouldn't have lied to you. Don't you dare put this on me. You worthless son wanted to be a parasite. I accepted because he is my husband, and I loved him. Then he expected me to take you in as well. You are not entitled to my money. You had no right to exploit me like this. Vera and Tom turned on me and started to call me names. They kept insisting that it was all my fault and they didn't deserve to be kicked out. Tom also said that he was entitled to my money and so was his mother. All that talk made my blood boil. By the time they were done, I had already made my decision. I said, "Enough is enough. I've heard everything I needed to hear. I thought I would kick Vera out and file for separation with you, Tom, but now I'm going for a divorce. You have no right to be my husband. I won't stay with you anymore, and don't even think about taking Ethan. He will stay with me. You can't divorce me, Jasmine. If you leave me, you'll have to give me alimony. I will also get half of your savings. I'll keep Ethan and take child support from you. That will teach you a lesson." You have some wild imagination, Tom. First of all, I have already depleted most of my savings on your mother, so you won't have much to claim anyway. Secondly, the judge won't grant you alimony since you quit your job without consulting me. I'll just say that I recorded our entire conversation, so the judge will know you want Ethan's custody only for child support. No, that can't happen. I'll make sure I bleed you dry. Me and Mum didn't go through so much drama for nothing. I will take your money. You just wait. Tom and Vera kept blowing up at me and threatening me with things. They were so stupid that they forgot the part where I said I was recording everything. From all the stories I heard, I knew that recording conversations can be pretty helpful in court cases, so I made sure I recorded and documented everything. After some time, I left them and went to my room. The next day, Tom and Vera tried to act like nothing happened. They actually began to act very sweet towards me, and Tom tried to hug me in the morning. I ignored them and went about my way. I did meet with 2 lawyers for divorce and eviction. After finalizing everything, I went home. Vera, for some odd reason, still used the wheelchair in front of me. Tom also continued the charade, hoping that I would be fooled again. I sent Ethan to my sister's house so that Tom couldn't scare him from revealing the truth. I was pretty concerned for the safety of my child. I stayed back because the house was mine, and I didn't want them to ruin it. A week later, I served Tom and Vera with eviction papers. I also served Tom divorce papers since there was no way in hell that I was staying with them. When they saw the notices, they completely freaked out. They said, "Jasmine, how can you do this to me? I don't deserve this treatment from you. This has to be a joke. I can't believe you would kick out a disabled woman. Jasmine, my son only wanted to take care of me. You are punishing him for nothing. I think we have already established that you are not disabled, Vera. There is no point in keeping up this charade. Even if I'm not disabled, I am old. You should not kick out an old person. God is watching." Well, God also saw how the 2 of you manipulated me and bled me dry. Now it's time for me to take my revenge. As for Tom, he has been a poor excuse for a husband and father. I was staying with him for Ethan, but not anymore. Tom and Vera tried several times to change my mind. However, I never did. I invited my sister over with Ethan so that he could be at my house. Tom and Vera became desperate to seek my forgiveness. I knew that Tom's poor financial decisions left him with no savings, so hiring a lawyer and fighting me in court would be impossible. Vera didn't work either and had no money of her own, so they were both stuck in a deep pit of financial crisis. They feasted on my income, but forgot the fact that I don't take manipulation lightly. Ethan was a teen, but he was smart enough to figure out what was going on in our house. He started to keep his distance from Tom and Vera. The fact that Tom and Vera kept shouting at him also didn't help. They said, "You little crap, this is all your fault. I told you to keep your mouth shut. Does it feel good to have your dad kicked out, Ethan? Is this making you very happy? Dad and Grandma will be out on the streets while you stay comfortable with your mum. How does that make you feel?" "I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't want to keep Mum in the dark, so I told her everything. I didn't know that she would leave you." "Shut up, Ethan. You are nothing but a useless child. I wish I never had you. If I didn't have you, I would remain married and stay in this house. You are responsible for our condition. Stop this right now. You have some audacity to scold and berate Ethan when he did the right thing. How can you speak to your child like that?" I was fuming at Tom and Vera's behavior towards Ethan. It scared the living hell out of him. It broke my heart to see him so scared. I threatened Tom and Vera to call the cops if they kept verbally and emotionally abusing Ethan. That shut them up real quick. Later, these incidents actually helped me to get full custody of Ethan. Once the month came to an end, I promptly kicked out Tom and Vera. They did try to throw tantrums until I called the police on them. The police arrived and escorted them out of my house with their things. Finally, Ethan and I were able to breathe in our own house. In the weeks that followed, my lawyers tried to convince Tom to sign the divorce papers. I even offered him some money if he signed the papers for good. Since he was almost homeless and didn't have any money, he begrudgingly agreed. I did lose some money, but I see that as a win. Well, what he got won't be enough to feed him for over 2 months. The custody agreements were pretty smooth. I got full custody because Tom was in no place to house Ethan. Even if he gets a job and demands split custody, I knew Ethan would speak against him. He was still very shaken and is seeing a therapist for his problems. I attended the sessions with him because I didn't want him to feel alone. My sister is also living with us for the time being to help me out with everything. We are also on the lookout to see if Tom and Vera try anything. From what I've heard so far, Tom and Vera had some nasty fights after I kicked them out. How did I know all this? Well, Tom came crying at my door about 2 weeks after getting kicked out. That's actually when I convinced him to sign the divorce. Apparently, Vera turned on Tom and demanded he get a job to feed her. When Tom refused to support her financially, she threw the worst tantrums ever. According to Tom, that made him see just what an idiot he was to me. Trust me, guys, I didn't feel anything towards him. I simply offered him the money and asked for his signature. By then, Tom knew there was no coming back. I have no idea where Vera is right now, but we are being careful. Meanwhile, Ethan and I trying to get past the fiasco and start our life afresh.
In the sweltering heat of Qatar's desert, I felt as if the warmth had become a part of me, wrapping around me like a second skin. Standing on the old wooden pier, I idly kicked my sandals against the time-worn boards, my eyes drawn to a procession of sleek, high-end cars cruising by. The drivers, mostly young men sporting sharp haircuts and designer shades, seemed to slow their vehicles just enough to cast long, assessing looks my way. "Nice view, huh?" The deep, unexpected voice made me start. I turned to see a tall man with sun-bleached hair and a confident smile, leaning casually against the railing nearby. He carried himself with a certain arrogance that I usually found off-putting, but tonight, it didn't irk me as much. "Yeah," I replied nonchalantly, my gaze returning to the horizon where the sun dipped low, painting the sky in vivid hues. "Sunsets are pretty common here, though, wouldn't you say?" He laughed, a warm, inviting sound. "Maybe common, but still pretty impressive. And those cars," he added, gesturing toward a cherry-red Ferrari that had just stopped further down the pier, from which a glamorous woman was stepping out, "are definitely not common." "Nope," I agreed with a smirk. "Those are a rare sight." His eyes sparkled with amusement. "You don't seem too taken with all this glitz and glamour." Leaning back against the railing, I crossed my arms. "It wears off. It seems like everyone here measures their worth by their bank balance." Raising an eyebrow, he asked, "So, what measures yours?" His question caught me off guard. Growing up as the daughter of a billionaire who co-owned a massive American chocolate empire, I'd seen enough of the world to last a lifetime. That's why I chose to forge my path in Qatar, far from my father's shadow. Well, I hesitated, unsure how much to disclose. "I value hard work and making your way in the world." He observed me intently for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Fair enough. I'm Robert, by the way," he said, extending his hand. "Emma," I replied, shaking his hand. His touch sent a surprising jolt through me weeks later, as we lounged by the pool at his upscale hotel, sipping cocktails under the shimmering city lights. Robert revealed that his company was searching for someone with my qualifications. "We could use someone like you," he stated casually. "Your company?" I looked up sharply. "Yeah," he shrugged. "It's a major investment firm in the States. We're always looking for talented people." His gaze locked with mine. "So, what do you say? Interested in a change of scenery from the usual Qatar sunsets?" The proposal sent my heart racing. The idea of starting anew, particularly with Robert, was thrilling yet daunting. I hesitated, my inner doubts surfacing. "I don't know. It's a big step," I admitted. He leaned in, his voice low and persuasive. "I know, but it could be an incredible adventure for you." After a moment of mixed emotions, I decided to take the risk. However, maintaining my independence was crucial. I couldn't simply move in with Robert. Instead, I found a modest apartment in a typical neighborhood, far from the opulent lifestyle he was accustomed to. This way, I could explore this new chapter on my terms, keeping my carefully crafted identity intact. I decided not to tell my father about my move to the States just yet. He was always caught up in a whirlwind of international business trips, and I wasn't quite sure how he'd react to my recent adventures in Qatar, not to mention my budding relationship with Robert. Only a few weeks after settling into my new role at Robert's company, I was already making strides. The job was demanding, but I thrived, feeling a sense of fulfillment that had eluded me in Qatar. One evening, after a particularly taxing day, all I wanted was to sink into my old, comfy couch. But as I walked in, I froze. There, in my modest living room, sat my father. He looked utterly out of place in a space that clearly screamed budget living. My jaw dropped in shock. "Dad." The word barely made it out as my voice cracked. With a slow, familiar smile, he replied, "Well, Mira, it seems a father can visit his daughter, even in her humble abode. How did you find me? I asked, my mind racing for explanations. He shrugged, a glimmer of pride in his eyes. Let's just say a father has his ways, especially when his daughter jets off to Qatar and then pops up working at a top investment firm across the ocean. I swallowed hard, realizing he knew everything. The world seemed to spin slightly off kilter. I just needed a new start, I mumbled, avoiding his gaze. A chance to build something for myself on my terms. He nodded slowly, understandingly. I get that, he said earnestly. But, honey, pretending to be someone you're not isn't the way to do it. Taking a deep breath, I decided it was time to be fully honest. Over the next hour, I poured out my heart, telling him about my life in Qatar, the job I'd secured, and most importantly about Robert. He listened intently, his expression unreadable. After I finished, a weighty silence hung in the air. Finally, he studied me for a long moment, then his face broke into a slow smile. It wasn't exactly approval, but it wasn't disapproval either. All right, he chuckled, pride evident in his voice. Looks like you've grown up quite a bit. Just be careful, okay? This world can be tough. I will, I promised, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. The next year was a blur of hard work and stolen moments with Robert. The pressures of the firm were immense, but I excelled. My efforts and intelligence finally gained the recognition they deserved. A year later, I was promoted to associate partner, a significant achievement in the cutthroat world of investment banking. One evening, while cooking dinner in my tiny apartment, Robert still hadn't convinced me to move in. He suddenly dropped to one knee, a sparkling diamond ring catching the candlelight. Emma, he began, his voice laden with emotion, you're the smartest, most beautiful woman I know. Will you marry me? Tears welled up in my eyes as I choked out a joyful yes and threw my arms around him. At that moment, I knew I was the happiest woman alive. Wedding planning began immediately. We opted for a simple ceremony on a secluded beach in the Maldives, envisioning a day that was just about us, Robert and me, celebrating our love without any ostentation. As the ocean breeze gently swept across the shoreline, I contemplated the simplicity of our upcoming wedding. Despite my background, a lavish ceremony was the last thing I wanted. It was essential to keep my past under wraps. Still, there was someone I needed to update. Hey, Dad, I began, my voice a cocktail of excitement and apprehension. On the other end, his familiar chuckle eased some of my nerves. It's time for some news? Go ahead, kiddo, he encouraged. Robert and we're getting married, I announced. A pause hung in the air before he responded with a seriousness that was uncharacteristic. Honey, I'm happy for you, but coming to the wedding might not be the best idea. It could stir up more attention than you'd want. My heart dropped as I understood the weight of his words. His high-profile presence could easily unravel the discreet life I had built. Okay, I conceded softly, forcing a smile into my voice. He cleared his throat, adding, and Mira, make sure you guys are thinking ahead. A prenup wouldn't hurt. His practical advice didn't surprise me. It made sense, given our distinct backgrounds. Sure, Dad, I replied, embracing his suggestion wholeheartedly. Meeting Robert's family introduced a different set of challenges. His mother, draped in elegance and exuding wealth, gave me a lukewarm smile that barely masked her scrutiny. Robert hasn't told us much about your work, she probed, her sweetness tinged with insincerity. Robert, ever so naive to the undercurrents, beamed with pride. She's an associate partner at a prestigious investment firm, Mom. She's incredibly talented. Her smile tightened. An investment firm? How interesting. The evening rolled on with subtle jabs and pointed inquiries about our financial arrangements. Calm and collected, I addressed each one. We've already discussed a prenup, I informed her, my tone both cool and assured. Her reaction was a mix of startled respect and reluctant admiration. The wedding day itself was exactly as I had hoped, simple and beautiful. Just me, Robert, and the rhythmic sound of waves crashing against the shore as we sealed our promises to each other. A few weeks later, Back in New York, Robert surprised me with the keys to a beautiful house in a tranquil, upscale neighborhood. It wasn't a mansion, but it was perfect for us. As we stood in the foyer surrounded by unpacked boxes, I felt a wave of contentment. Life was not exactly as I had planned, but it was genuinely fulfilling. However, as time passed, the glow of my professional successes seemed to cast a shadow over Robert's spirits. His congratulations, once warm and enthusiastic, now felt perfunctory. The joy in his eyes seemed to dim with each of my achievements. Then came the merger, an enormous success for the firm and a personal triumph for me. I rushed to share the news with Robert, only to find him subdued. His reaction was a complex mix of astonishment and restraint. "You did good, babe," he said, the strain evident in his voice. It felt like praise forced out rather than freely given. A chill of realization crept over me. Could my successes be diminishing him somehow? At home, his mother was no help. Her expertise in passive aggression shone through. Back in my day, she would often start, her voice dripping with condescension. Wives focused on their homes, not playing at business. Navigating this new dynamic was challenging. I had to tread carefully, balancing my professional aspirations with the personal pressures at home, all the while questioning how to maintain my happiness without overshadowing those I loved. The day Robert barged into our house, his face stormy and his mood darker than I had ever seen, my heart sank. Without a word, he threw a thick envelope onto the kitchen table. "Severance package," he growled, his voice cold. "The staff, cleaners, cooks, gardeners, they're all gone. Looks like you'll finally have to make this house a home." Anger surged within me, but it was swiftly washed away by a wave of fear. I didn't want a divorce. I wanted the man I had married, the loving Robert, to return. In a desperate attempt to mend our fraying relationship, I decided to embrace the role of homemaker, believing that if I could create the perfect domestic sanctuary, perhaps Robert would see my value again. A part of me longed to call my father, to seek his advice and possibly his help, but pride held me back. I couldn't bear to let him see the mess I was in. This was my battle to handle. Months later, to smooth over the growing rift, Robert planned a cruise on his luxurious yacht. The sun glared off the polished deck as we sailed. His mother, Rose, in a garish white pantsuit adorned with excessive diamonds, held court among her affluent friends. They cackled over champagne, their laughter grating against the rhythmic slap of the waves. Robert, ever the attentive son, hovered around, refilling glasses and forcing laughter at his mother's stale jokes. I managed a strained smile, trying to ignore the knot of discomfort in my stomach. As the day progressed, champagne loosened Rose's tongue, transforming her polite mask into a spiteful sneer. Swinging toward me with a glass in hand, she slurred, "It takes a special kind of woman to give up a promising career to scrub toilets." Her companions erupted in harsh laughter, their glee cutting through me like a blade. I remained silent, not wanting to escalate the tension. Robert, oblivious or indifferent, laughed along, praising my newfound domestic skills. "That's right, Ma. Myra's a real domestic goddess now." The evening spiraled with each passing hour. Each jab from Rose was met with nothing but feeble jokes from Robert. I felt reduced to a mere trophy wife, my silence misread as submission. As darkness fell and the yacht neared a cluster of small islands, I'd had enough. I approached the captain, a seasoned sailor named Jackson, and said firmly, "I need to get off this boat." He looked at me with concern. "Here? In the middle of nowhere?" "Yes," I affirmed, my resolve hardening. "There's an island nearby. Please drop me off and notify the Coast Guard." A few minutes later, the yacht slowed near my chosen island. As I moved toward the railing, clutch in hand, Robert finally took notice. "Where do you think you're going?" he demanded, irritation sharp in his voice. "Somewhere you don't want me to be," I retorted, my decision clear. "Consider this marriage over. Both you and your precious mother are unworthy of any more of my time." Rose, spurred on by alcohol and my defiance, cackled. "You think you can just walk away? You've been living off his money. Robert's face twisted in anger as he lunged for my purse, ripping it from my hands. "These are my credit cards, Myra. Leave if you must, but leave everything." As I stepped onto the small boat that would take me to shore, leaving behind the toxic atmosphere and the stifling confines of a loveless marriage, I felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. I was finally taking a stand, not just for my dignity, but for my happiness. By the break of dawn, I expected to see her stranded on that island, pitiful and desperate. But as I observed the two of them, devoid of compassion and warmth, an unusual calm enveloped me. "Perhaps," I replied, locking eyes with Robert. "But at least I'll retain my dignity." Robert's yacht floated nonchalantly at anchor, echoes of raucous laughter drifting from it. I stood on the dock, the chilly night breeze providing relief from the yacht's oppressive revelry. Suddenly, a figure stepped out from the shadows, his uniform sharply contrasting with the yacht's festive environment. He marched determinedly toward the vessel, his voice resonating over the water. "Ahoy! This island is private, and access is restricted. Understand?" His tone carried the weight of authority. Robert, still flushed from his previous outburst, leaned over the railing, baffled. "What? Who are you?" The man, a security guard named Hannah, whom I had discreetly informed earlier, an act of quiet rebellion that felt incredibly satisfying, stood firm. "Security," he stated simply. "Looks like you're lost. You need to leave within 3 hours." Robert scoffed. 3 hours? We just arrived. "And why should we listen to you?" Hannah, unimpressed, replied in a lower tone. "You don't want to cross the owner of this island. He's a man of significant influence. It's in your best interest not to antagonize him." As Rose began to realize what was happening, she leaned in, her voice overly sweet. "Oh, but surely a little longer won't hurt?" Hannah then turned to me, his expression softening upon recognition. He saluted crisply. "Miss Lambert," he announced, his voice carrying across the waters, "your private plane is prepared and awaiting your departure. Shall we proceed to the airstrips?" The air was electric with tension. Robert's complexion turned pale, and Rose's mouth fell open in shock. This was the moment of truth. I smiled broadly, walking toward Hannah and embracing him warmly. "Thank you, Hannah. You and your team have done an exemplary job," he responded, slightly embarrassed by my show of gratitude. "Just doing my job, Miss Lambert." Robert, regaining his voice, stammered. "Wait, Lambert." Ignoring him, I followed Hannah, my spirits uplifted. The world seemed more vibrant, the air fresher. "Already," Hannah mentioned casually. "Ready to take you wherever you need to go, Miss Lambert." Behind us, Rose gasped in disbelief. "You're the daughter of—" She didn't need to finish. The truth was apparent. Robert, finally understanding, stumbled after me. "Emma, wait. Please come back." His voice was tinged with a desperation I never thought possible just hours before. But I continued forward, empowered by newfound strength, their apologies and pleas fading into the background. The sound of the approaching plane was a symphony of liberation, transporting me toward a future defined on my terms. The next morning, with the taste of freedom still lingering, I walked into the office of a notorious divorce attorney, a relentless shark handpicked for this very purpose. He rifled through some documents, ready to dive into the fray. A smirk spread across his face. "Hold on a second," he said. "It seems during your tenure at Robert's esteemed company, you orchestrated several multi-million-dollar deals. Oddly enough, there's no mention of a bonus in your contract. Is there?" A slow burn ignited in my chest. They hadn't just underestimated me. They had tried to cheat me. The lawyer, sensing my mounting fury, gave my hand a reassuring pat. "Don't worry, my dear. We'll secure everything you're owed. The divorce settlement, backdated bonuses, the whole lot." He kept his promise. The divorce proceedings were quick and ruthless. Robert, deflated and subdued, sat opposite me, his swagger replaced by a sullen demeanor. The judge, a stern woman unfazed by intimidation, granted me a substantial settlement, including the backdated bonuses that my ex had conveniently neglected. As I exited the courtroom, a triumphant smile adorned my face. As I passed Robert, I noticed his red-rimmed eyes and slouched posture. "Emma," he murmured, his voice a mere whisper. "Everyone's laughing at me, my friends. I miss you." He reached out, but I recoiled. His pathetic attempt only fortified my determination. "Miss me? You never truly saw me, Robert. You were too engrossed with your mother's advice to notice the woman right in front of you." He opened his mouth to respond, but I didn't let him. "Here's some free advice. Next time, maybe listen more to the strong, capable woman you marry if there is a next time." The following day, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Rose's name. A scoff escaped me as she cooed with feigned affection. "Emma, darling, Robert is devastated. Can't you find it in your heart to forgive him and start over?" Her audacity was astounding. I laughed heartily, the sound rising genuinely from deep within. "Forgive him? Start over? Rose, the only thing starting over is my life, and it certainly won't include either of you." Before she could spew more manipulations, I ended the conversation with a sharp, "This call is over. And by the way, your number is now blocked." With a decisive click, I hung up. The air was charged with promise as I stood at the entrance of my new foundation's office. The walls were adorned with the aspirations of budding entrepreneurs, their innovative ideas poised for support and launch. This was my new arena, and this time I was championing the good guys. Empowered by the generous settlement to make a real difference, with wise investments in my portfolio, money was the least of my worries. More importantly, the recent court case had ignited a deep well of determination within me. I was not just going to rebuild my life, I was set on helping others craft their own. The Emma Evans Foundation became my tool for fighting mediocrity, a launching pad for those brimming with talent and ambition. The Foundation's inaugural day was a bustling scene of activity. Hopeful individuals streamed into the office, each carrying unique vision and a fierce determination to leave their mark on the world. Mentors moved through the crowd, offering advice and encouragement, filling the room with an electric buzz of shared purpose. Just as the day began to wind down, the office door swung open, and in walked a familiar figure that made my jaw drop. It was my father. His laughter filled the room as he saw my astonished face. "Surprised your old man can find his way around without a map?" he joked. A wave of warmth washed over me. "Dad, what are you doing here?" I exclaimed as he pulled me into a comforting hug, his familiar scent grounding me. "I thought I'd come and see how the big boss lady is running things," he winked, adding humorously, "Besides, your fancy foundation doesn't need another broke dreamer on its payroll, does it?" I laughed, the tension easing from my shoulders. "Dad, it's not about the money, it's about giving people a chance." He nodded, his gaze turning serious. "And you, sweetheart, are giving yourself a hell of a chance." A blush crept over my cheeks as I thought about my past with Robert. "I should have listened to you, Dad." He squeezed my hand, reassuringly. "Listen, sometimes you have to learn things the hard way. That's life. But what matters is you learned, and you came out on the other side stronger and wiser." He glanced around the office, his eyes twinkling with pride. "This is something special, Emma Evans. Something you built yourself. And no matter what life throws your way, remember, you've always got a home here with me." As he turned to leave, I grabbed his arm. "Thanks, Dad," I whispered, the words thick with gratitude for his unwavering support. He smiled, a knowing glint in his eyes. "Anytime, kiddo." With a final wave, he walked out the door, leaving behind a renewed sense of purpose in me. The future might be uncertain, but armed with the lessons I've learned and the love of my family, I knew I was ready to face whatever came next.